done for effect. It's a drive-by shooting. It's done to demoralize. But in reality, you take a step back and say, what kind of idiot would ever do that? And the answer is no one who was trying to maximize a return. It is someone who is trying to do this for effect. And that's why when you see all of these things happen, when you see the largest accumulation of gold by the central banks ever over the last 18 months, when you see countries continuing to move away from the West, including our allies, and using gold and silver as a way to de-dollarize, then the price means nothing. And I know it's hard to hear that. It's almost hard to say it, but it's true, because the price action is being betrayed by the massive drawdowns that we continue to see on COMEX and on the LBMA. And I think it's worth noting. It really is worth noting that if we talk about just the amount of deliveries that we've seen this year, we've seen almost 13,000 silver contracts stand for delivery. That's this year. That's 65 million ounces that have stood for delivery. That's over 2,000 tons. And when you talk about gold, over 240 tons have been delivered out of COMEX since January 1st. And last week when I was laying around doing a little reading on the Mend, I read that 55 tons were delivered last week in the 7 trading days up to when I was reading this on Tuesday or Wednesday. So you can see that deliveries is a rising tendency. We are seeing more and more and more deliveries, quietly though, massive deliveries off the LBMA. The price and the price action is meaningless when you see big deliveries across the globe and a continuing drive to de-dollarize into this August meeting, which now our allies are requesting access to, where supposedly they're going to issue a new currency pegged to commodities. This is the volatility before the storm. And, normally they say the calm before the storm. But if you look at a big move generally in history, a big move in a market, it's usually precipitated by a great volatility leading up to it. And this volatility, which makes no sense in the greater scheme of things, this price action, it makes no sense in the greater scheme of things. To me, it makes sense to what the playbook that they've used for a very long time. And when you see the type of maneuvers that they're making by dumping 25 million ounces at the opening, I think it reeks of desperation. And to me, we're getting close to that moment. So one last thing I'd like to say, in the 3 years that I've been doing this with you, I don't know that there's been a better environment right now, because of really there's been a little bit of apathy in the market right now, and it's slow in the entire precious metals space. It's slow. And I think price, premium, availability, it's as good as it's been since 2020. And so people who are looking to do what the biggest money in the world is doing, I don't know that there's been a better time to do it in the last 3 years.
The scenario that you painted with the rush of countries all around the world to join the BRICS, as well as more significantly or equally significantly, the repatriation and acquisition and converting of physical metal, that grab to be on the right, to have the right assets and to be on the right side of history, it almost seems like the Noah's Ark story, except in this case, instead of one family being the standouts who are doing the preparation, you got half the world rushing to do the preparation, and the other half the world being, I guess, the Western nations that are clinging to the fiat legacy currency system, kind of, whistling past the graveyard. The other thing that occurred to me when you talked about more recently here, this price action on the COMEX versus the physical deliveries that are taking place is a classic bash and stash, where either bad things being said or nothing being said about an asset while while the price is being affected by derivative paper action, and the physical belying that, the physical being taken out the back door. So it's absolutely important that you bring this to us. It reminds me of the big talk that you did at the Boca Raton Rural Investment Symposium on Natural Resources last July in Boca Raton, Florida, really laying out, connecting all the dots on this global pivot away from the dollar, away from fiat currencies and into real things, real, true commodities that don't require you to, necessarily trust the opposing party, but to trust the real thing that's in your hand. Any thoughts looking forward to next month's Rule Symposium, again in Boca Raton, Florida? As far as, I guess you could say I told you so. It'd be a short speech. But anyway, things that are on your mind that you're going to bring forward.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have two speeches, and one of them will be a recap of what I've been saying this same narrative at his show for this will be my third year in a row, and I have been right. And there are very few times in life, in this industry, where you can say, I've been right. I mean, that's the truth. People always say when they're right, they never talk about when they're wrong. And I would say to you that, I don't go around saying that, because being right, we have been right. We've never got the timing right ever. It's just too hard. But I have been right on the timing too on this, and I'm gonna talk about that. But more importantly, and I'm a little bit hesitant to even go down this road, but the name of my second presentation is something to the extent of, could this all have been planned? And when you look at the people advising our president, from Lael Brainerd to Jared Bernstein and the other advisors, almost all of them, their whole mantra, their whole school of thought, is regarding woke ideology, wealth redistribution, things that favor an agenda of a social agenda rather than focusing on the shareholder price. It's really quite shocking, as a matter of fact. And when you realize that his two main advisors, Jared Bernstein, advocates losing the world reserve status, and Lael Brainerd advocates a central bank digital currency and no banks other than one central bank, you can take a look and see what's happening